Transformers: Battle for Earth was one of the very first Transformers books for kids. However, how different is it from the cartoon and the comic book series? To better understand this book and how it mixes characters with art that doesn't make sense, I'm going to go over all the characters from Transformers that were introduced in the first 3 episodes of the cartoon and the first issue of the comic book. We begin on Cybertron, where Wheeljack and Bumblebee, the good guys, avoid the evil Decepticons Starscream, Thundercracker, and Skywarp. Then, Soundwave uses Laserbeak to infiltrate the Autobot base. Jazz reports to Autobot leader Optimus Prime, along with Prowl and Hoist, that the coast is clear for their secret mission to find more Energon. The Decepticon leader Megatron and Shockwave hear of this plan. As Optimus Prime leaves, we get a glimpse on the shuttle of other Transformers from Season 1, Sideswipe, Ironhide, and Mirage. A meteor shower depowers the Autobot ship, the Ark, allowing the Decepticons to get on board. The resulting battle causes the ship to become uncontrollable, colliding to Earth, and everyone falls into stasis lock. 4 million years later, a volcano erupts, awakening the computer, which repairs everyone because it's too damaged to discern friend from foe. It then gives every Transformer the ability to transform into a vehicle from Earth. The first thing Megatron does is construct a base and try to steal Earth's energy. And Hound and Cliffjumper appear out of nowhere to investigate it. But at least they get introductions, unlike most of them. Hound has super hearing skills. Cliffjumper's power? A big-ass gun. A new action figure appears, Rumble, who has the power of earthquakes. Before the big battle, there is a sound-off of most of the Autobots, and by magic, Trailbreaker and Sunstreaker appear. Ratchet, however, never got a name in the first episode, even though he appears quite frequently throughout the entire show. At the end of the episode, 2 more appear out of nowhere, Hoffer and Brawn, but they are properly introduced the next episode. Also, this guy who appears to be Windcharger is in the lineup, but never shows up again in the first 3 episodes. Later, in episode 3, Gears shows up, but yeah, no one really cares about him. Speaking of worthless Transformers, there's Reflector. Now, they all look the same, so clearly they must have some amazing power that they all duplicated among themselves, right?
Hey, what's that?
Let's find out.
Okay, Reflector. Let's see what you can see.
A camera? I mean, it requires 3 people to turn into a camera, but only 1 to turn into a gigantic tank. So, clearly the writers even know this was a worthless character, because he never showed up in the comic book at all. And then, the writers just abandoned him after about the 5th or 6th episode, and he only appears as a background character from that point on. I mean, Transformers has come back to the cartoon world 20 different times about this time now, and no one has ever re-envisioned a new and awesome look or personality for Reflector. I mean, some writers have used him for the IDW 2000 plus current comic books, but my only reaction to that is, why? At the end of the first episode, the Decepticons fight an oil rig for energy, the Autobots beat them, and the stage is set for the entire premise of the show to stop Megatron from stealing Earth's energy and converting it into Energon. Hey, but don't forget Spike and Sparkplug, they're human companions. They're totally essential to the show. In the comic books, the Decepticons from the cartoon are all there, though Ravage can actually talk. The story is similar, but different. Megatron is shown plotting the war from behind the scenes during Cybertron's peaceful days, and the battle of the Decepticons and Autobots is so severe, it knocks Cybertron from its orbit and is heading directly into an asteroid belt. New comic book Decepticons are Frenzy and Buzzsaw, which are just repaints of Rumble and Laserbeak, but they are later introduced in Season 1 of the cartoon a few episodes later. On the Autobot side, the only new character is Bluestreak. It's obvious the cartoon and the comic work together to get the same characters in each medium. That makes 19 Autobots and 14 Decepticons. However, I counted Reflector as 3 people, even though he's worthless, so that really makes 11 Decepticons. And then you have the 5 cassettes, which are small, leaving only 6 major Decepticons at the onset versus the Autobots' 19. So the Decepticons are vastly outnumbered 3 to 1. Maybe that's why they retreat all the time at the end of every episode. With such a diverse lineup of characters to choose from, just who do you think the book decides to focus on? Growing up, I had 3 VHS tapes of the Transformers. The one I remember the most, though, is the episode about the space bridge being built. However, this is what I started with, this children's book, available from Kmart for $4.98. But I also recall getting these comic book digests, which had issues 1 through 2 and 5 through 6, which pretty much cemented Shockwave as my favorite character, because he just literally comes out of nowhere and destroys Megatron, all the Decepticons, and all the Autobots, and declares himself leader. This book is written by Max Baum, and this would be his only Transformer book. If he wrote anything else, I could find no evidence of it. It's also illustrated by Brad Jones and Roberta Edelman. Roberta never illustrated another Transformers product, whereas Brad Joyce also did The Invasion of the Decepticon Camp, which was a coloring and sticker book, but he also drew that book with Steve Ditko. Yes, I said that name correctly. Well, they start with a quick summary of the war, and how, as the war played out over time, 2 leaders emerged from both sides. An evil Decepticon known as Megatron, and an heroic Autobot known as Optimus Prime. Not even through the first page and we've already got grammatical errors. Just like the comic book, Optimus Prime is trying to destroy asteroids that threaten Cybertron. The Decepticons that attack him are Megatron, Thundercracker, Soundwave, and Ravage, though Rumble appears on the next page not doing anything or mentioned ever again. And this is clearly Shockwave on the cover, even though he appears nowhere in the story, in text or in the art. Oh yeah, and Ravage can talk again. The Autobots this time are Optimus Prime, Mirage, Ratchet, and Prowl. Though Ironhide, and Hound, and a random Autobot appear on the next page, Megatron announced to his robots, "Our mission is to take over the Earth, destroy the Autobots, and conquer the universe." "Today's Autobots are tomorrow's scrap metal," Ravage added. The rest of the Decepticons laughed. "Cries and screams are music to my ears," Soundwave sneered. Soundwave was so horrible that even the other Decepticons hated him. What? Optimus Prime spoke to his Autobot warriors. "Freedom is the right of all beings." I guess the word sentient is too hard for small kids. Together, the Autobots gave out a cheer so great that they nearly set off another volcanic explosion. Spike and Sparkplug are introduced because every Transformers story needs human characters. And that's it, there's no story here. The first 6 pages are to introduce the Autobots, their world, and how they got here, and then these 2 pages are just to introduce the humans and their relationship. And then the real story begins the next page, in which the humans and Jazz become the, quote, main character. And when I say main character, I mean the humans are forgotten forever after 2 pages in, and Jazz just kind of blends into the background and disappears with the rest of the Autobots. Storytelling, it doesn't have to be good if it's just for kids. So if you're a fan of Transformers, you might understand what's going on here, but new people are just going to be confused. I mean, it says, hey, this Autobot talks, but nowhere in any of the pages do they ever establish who is who. So if you're reading this, you're just going to have to guess which Transformer is what, because there's no help for you. And also, none of them have descriptions at all. It's never, hey, the green Autobot, Hound. They just always say, Optimus said, Jazz said. No one gets any descriptions, so any kid is going to just be confused even more if you don't already know who these people are. In fact, sometimes they talk and they're not even on that page. Okay, did like 2 different people illustrate this? I mean, look at this. This looks like 2 completely different artists drew Buster, whereas the other person drew his father. Did I just say Buster? Which one was he in? The cartoon or the who cares? Anyway, let's begin with the actual story. Buster is reading the newspaper one day when he starts fawning over Global Building Corp because they built a new Freedom Sports Arena that can seat 75,000 people. Sparkplug then decides to tell him the entire the entire history of Global Building Corporation. Global? Repeated Sparkplug. They're the best. They built Condo City in New York, and the Triplet Towers in Dallas. It says here that Global has built sports arenas, office buildings, and apartment house complexes in 98 cities all over the world. Every day, 4.5 million people set foot inside Global Okay, come on. Is this like a real company? I mean, I don't need any advertisements in my comics designed to sell me toys. I've got to see this with my own eyes. As for Jazz, he is not impressed. What a bore. My thoughts exactly, Jazz. Hell, when they get there, it's just a giant, like, vat of nothing. There's only mud, and that's it. They haven't even started constructing anything. Is life in Beacon, Oregon so boring that you have to go out of your way to look for entertainment wherever you can find it? And how is this going to cause the Decepticons to appear? I mean, you can't get energy from a sports stadium. And yes, that's Devastator right there, or the Constructicons. This was also probably one of my favorites growing up, because I never actually saw him in the cartoons. My only experience with Devastator was here in this children's book. After a long, pointless description of the machines actually working and running on the roads, then we get something very strange was happening. The trucks were operating without drivers. These trucks were not mere machines. They were the Constructicons. They traveled over the highway, then detoured through the wilderness. They sped through mountain range and until they reached a fortress of unearthly design. You do not need that "and" in there. Works perfectly fine without it. The construction vehicles enter the Decepticon headquarters, where, shocking the young reader, they transform into robots. In just a few weeks, the freedom will be added to my Destructor board. Is Megatron playing a board game here? That sounds like something you'd hear in an advertisement. And keep track of your opponent's energy on the Destructor board. Megatron pointed to a map where symbols marked the sites of 98 global buildings. Oh my god, the pointless corporate backstory had meaning! The Constructicons will erect one more building, and then, the day we were all waiting for, Destructicon Day. I like how the writer just added the word con to the end of it, because that's apparently how they talk. I guess con just means the letter S in their language. Back at Autobot base, we see Prowl, Jazz, Ratchet, and newly introduced Sideways and Hound. Jazz says he can smell a Decepticon a mile away. Oh good, he's not as stupid as I originally thought. He was merely pretending not to notice the Decepticons so he could get the humans out of the story as quickly as possible. This is serious. We must invade the Decepticon fortress at once. Oh, but the best description is right here. All at once, 35 robots transformed into vehicles of every kind. Did the writer just arbitrarily make a number out of his head, or did he actually look at all the Autobot action figures and say, hey, there's 35 of them, I'll put that in this book? Because it really makes no sense how they could lose coming up later in the story when they have 35 people in their army. The Autobots are coming, Laserbeak reported to Megatron. Well, I guess Laserbeak can talk because why not? When the Autobots reached the fortress, they found every door wide open. This must be a trap, said Optimus Prime. Autobots, proceed with extreme caution. Caution? Your group of 35 heavily armed soldiers. Just go in and start shooting the place up. Red Alert was edgy. Okay, Red Alert feels edgy, but he was never actually in any of the pictures in this entire story. Also, he's not one of the original Autobots in the comic or the cartoon. Sunstreaker also talks, but he doesn't appear until 6 pages later. Anyway, Megatron says they are now earning energy the legal way and not actually doing anything wrong. Optimus Prime, however, is not convinced. He knew that no Decepticon was interested in earning an honest living. Man, that sounds kind of racist. Luckily, Prowl notices the 98 dots on the Destructor board. Megatron had a grand plan. A plan that involved big buildings and millions of people. It had to be blackmail. Prowl's shocking discovery scrambled his circuits. I like how Prowl can't comprehend the fact that the Decepticons are being deceptive. I actually like the idea of Megatron trying to trick them instead of just firing on them all the time. Starscream also appears from out of nowhere on this page and never returns again in the rest of the story, text or art. This book might as well be called Transformers, the Cameo Story. Due to Prowl's advanced tactics of reading dots on a board, Megatron releases a trap that drops them out of the base, and we get a whole 2 pages of buildings, as multiple buildings are stolen underground from all over the country. Megatron then demands the world turn itself over to him, or he will destroy all 98 buildings across the world. Wow, this is an incredibly time-consuming and well-thought-out plan. I mean, usually they just invade a refinery and steal some energy and call it a day. Optimus Prime has a great idea. Blow a hole in the Decepticon base and charge right through it. Ah, the master strategist at work. When the Autobots were ready, Roadbuster took the lead. Who the f*** is Roadbuster? I mean, he never showed up in the comics or the cartoon. Well, get ready for a Transformers history lesson. You see, Roadbuster, along with Whirl, were actually action figures that were brought over to America from the anime Special Armored Battalion Dorvac, because they were running out of figures to sell in America and needed more. However, it was never allowed to be used in the cartoon because most action figures for Transformers were bought from Takara. And if they put these toys in the cartoon, then they would essentially be offering free advertising for a rival company. And so they never appeared anywhere. I think he appeared in some of the UK comics, but not many people read those. Megatron, Soundwave, and Rumble begin fighting Optimus Prime, Sunstreaker, and Windcharger. Hey, Windcharger does get some action, and we actually learn that he has a special ability, a repelling magnetic field. However, he doesn't get a picture in this book unless this is the back of him being blasted by Devastator. Then came a mysterious command from Megatron. Constructicons transform phase 2. The Constructicons transform, but they weren't robots, and they weren't trucks. What were they? Together they formed the biggest transformer of all, the Devastator. The Autobots, all 35 of them, remember, are quickly defeated by Devastator. Now, what possible Deus Ex Machina device could possibly get them out of this and resolve everything within the next 4 pages? Suddenly, strange prehistoric sounds could be heard through the din. Grimlock, Slag, Snarl, and Sludge lumbered down the hall of the fortress. They were the Dinobots. Yep, this isn't a story, it's just throwing many characters at the screen until eventually the side you want to win, you just throw more characters at it. You see, Devastator actually works as a story point because even though his reveal as Devastator from the Constructicons is a secret, he was actually planted in the beginning of the book, so he works as a standard narrative device. Whereas the Dinobots, they just appear out of nowhere and were never hinted at in the text or the art. So, yeah, kids writing, doesn't need to be smart. Anyway, let's see how they destroy Devastator. You know what? They all shoot him at once and he blows up. That's pretty much it. Just they each get their own individual attack. Well, that was rather easy, and made Devastator not as big a menace as he should be, or as I thought he was growing up. But then sometimes a random laser blast would just hit him and he would all fall apart and go back into Constructicon mode. But hey, that was only because the writers were like, man, we need to get this episode over with quickly. I know, stray laser blast. I like how in the book, it looks like Swoop is the one that did all the work, and his one laser blast destroyed it. Whereas the rest of the Dinobots, they just kind of sit off in the corner there and growl while the battle's going on. Check out these backgrounds. Apparently, they fight Megatron in the base on the first floor where they stand, with a second floor that goes over a door and its pink hallway. Earlier, they attacked him in an orange grinder area with a long yellow screen, and Devastator is destroyed in the longest and widest pink hallway I have ever seen. Mirage saw his chance. He teleported himself to the... Wait, whoa. Mirage does not teleport, he creates illusions, or mirages. Skywarp is the Transformer that teleports, and he's a Decepticon, not an Autobot. Though it is interesting that Mirage actually saves the day by pushing the button to rise everything up again, because in the original cartoon, he's the one that hides away on the Decepticon ship and pushes a button to blow it up so that they can't escape back to Cybertron, thence saving the day for everyone. The war is over. The prisoners are free. The Devastator button is gone forever. Then our work is done, said Optimus Prime. The Constructicons do not surrender, said Megatron. We do not admit defeat. But Optimus Prime did not need Megatron's surrender. The hostages were free, and that was good enough for him. Autobots, roll out, he said. Our hero, ladies and gentlemen, just decides to leave the villains where they are so they can create chaos once again in the next episode. Alright, the story problems with this are the same as the cartoon's beginning. The story itself might be solid, though simple, but there are problems just all over the place. Characters just show up out of nowhere, they aren't even described half the time, and most of the time you have no idea who they are because there's no point of reference between the text and the art going on beside it. I mean, this is a children's picture book. If you say, Sunstreaker said, then you should have a picture of Sunstreaker right there so that the kids know who's talking. If you know the characters, it is easy to follow on, but for someone who doesn't know anything, you're not going to understand who the characters are, what they are, or where they actually even appear and look like, except for Optimus Megatron, and a few others you could deduce a little bit from occasional pictures that match. I just wanted to show you the awesome Transformers children's book, and this was not the only thing made. I mean, obviously, Transformers was a huge thing. They made sticker books, they made Choose Your Own Adventure, coloring books, and even cassette tapes, or even records too. And if you wanted to give this or those things to your kid, there are a ton of them still on Amazon and eBay that you could purchase. But wait, this episode would not be complete if I didn't go over the second and only other Marvel hardcover book made. And that just came in the mail, and it is called Transformers, the Autobots' Secret Weapon. Now, this might surprise you, but this book is written by Nancy Krulik, who, though only credited with one Transformers story in her life, has written over 500 novels. She was the creator and writer of the Katie Kazoo Switcheroo and the How I Survived Middle School series. She's also gotten 3 books on the National Bestsellers list, wrote the novelizations of many film adaptations like Free Willy, Space Jam, and Tomb Raider, and has also written autobiographies of Left Eye, Lisa from TLC, Hanson, and Jim Carrey, and has also wrote various stories in the Magic School Bus and Mary-Kate and Ashley Olsen series. The artist for this book is Robert Edelman again, in her second and only Transformers title, but this time she co-illustrates with Charles Nicholas in his only Transformers title. It starts off describing Sunstreaker as a very vain Autobot who likes looking at his reflection as he changes from vehicle to robot mode again and again. And then we start the story proper with Devastator being a douche and just going out of his way to dent Sunstreaker's vehicle. Sunstreaker attacks in turn, but he shot laser after laser at the giant Decepticon. But the Decepticon was quick. He avoided all of Sunstreaker's missile attacks. How do you miss something that big? He's the size of a freaking skyscraper. I mean, clearly this guy is definitely not going to make it long in the battlefield. Anyway, the battle rages on for a few pages, and Sunstreaker is eventually captured and placed in a jail cell with his gun. Apparently, the Decepticons don't know what the word confiscate means. Suddenly, Sunstreaker saw something he had never seen before. The giant Decepticon was breaking apart. They were 6 pieces in all, and each piece became a separate Decepticon. Wait, hold on a minute here. In the last book, everybody already knew this. They saw them come out, transform in as one. In fact, Sunstreaker was even there. Anyway, the next page is the Decepticons talking about how awesome they are and their abilities so that you can rush out and go buy their toys. Then Megatron appears to state how having one Autobot will make all the other Autobots surrender, and Sunstreaker isn't having any of that, so he shoots Megatron in the head. "I could destroy you in a second," says Megatron, but of course he can't really because this is a kid's book. And then of course he decides to start shooting Sunstreaker while he's in his jail cell, as does the rest of the Constructicons, and nothing bad really happens to Sunstreaker because this isn't Transformers the movie. We then see the Autobot base, and Blaster conveys Megatron's message to leave Earth, or Sunstreaker will be destroyed and rebuilt as a Decepticon. Okay, this Transformer universe has either vastly different rules, or no one had access to the series Bible. Sideswipe declares that he needs to save him because he's Sunstreaker's twin. Don't ask. Grimlock thinks they can win if they all work together, forgetting that it was just him and his 4 other Dinobots that took Devastator down in the first place. 3 of the 5 Dinobots decide to just walk right up to the Decepticon base, along with Sideswipe, and it's never really indicated if Optimus actually gave them permission to go or not. Also, there was a ton of blank space on this page. Was there like a last-minute text removal? Sideswipe, Slag, and Sludge take down generic Decepticon guards, then quickly lose to Devastator and are thrown in a cell. Megatron sends another message. "With the added strength of 4 new Decepticons, I will be able to defeat the Autobots once and for all." For the first time, the Autobots were scared. Optimus Prime comes up with a brilliant idea, but doesn't tell the reader about it because it's called a secret plan. Instead, we see them build a giant statue of Devastator they said they created for Megatron as a peace offering and then declare their surrender. I guess you can all see where this is going, right? Optimus, Swoop, and Bumblebee jump out and attack. Yeah, Bumblebee finally appears. Anyway, they make sure everyone fires at different limbs to confuse Devastator, since it was established that it's 6 different Decepticons all thinking together, so this confuses them, and they try to fight all the Autobots at once, causing them to uncombine and form back into the Constructicons. Now evenly meshed, Optimus Prime commands his Jet Squad. Yeah, the Autobots apparently have flying people on their staff, even though this is the first season. Megatron goes for Optimus Prime, but he picks up a piece of metal and deflects his laser back at him. Wounded, the Decepticons retreat. From their own base? Let's go, Autobots, ordered Optimus Prime. Optimus Prime said his own name because they forgot the quotation mark at the end of the sentence. We will gather up the bodies of our wounded and bring them back to the Ark for repair. Not even Devastator can defeat us when we work together. I'd like you to take a look at this cover. Now, do you see what's wrong here? Go ahead, I'll give you 5 seconds. Did you find the problem? That is Devastator, yet there seems to be a Constructicon down here afraid of Devastator, the very creature he is a part of. Interestingly, this story does not have any of the problems of the first book. Every character is clearly mentioned in their text with a respective picture of them, so you can tell who every single character is. So it's easy to follow along, and no kids will get lost, and every character will be known to them. Also, I like the idea of Devastator being tricked, because they were actually 6 people thinking at once, so they just confused all of their brains, because that actually made sense as a kid's story resolution, and wasn't a Deus Ex Machina plot trying to get the writer out of the situation. Not only did I get to share with you one of my first children's books, I also got to learn about a new Transformers book, which actually had a much better story in it than the original one I grew up with. Now, I remember watching Transformers as a kid, but didn't get back into them again until one of my friends at college gave me 8 CDs with every single episode on them, and since then, I've been hooked ever since. I mean, I just even recently started watching the Transformers Prime cartoon show, which, strangely enough, is written very maturely, so you could actually enjoy it even if you're 20, 30, 40 plus years old, and little kids can still watch it as well, because nothing too serious ever actually happens. So it's something I highly recommend if you haven't ever heard of it before. The end.